Hey, it's Dan Morales, and this is Homebuyer Radio, episode number 44. I wanted to switch the podcast up a little bit this week. Normally, I publish the podcast on Friday mornings, and what I wanted to do was maybe play with the date that I release the podcast and maybe switch up a little bit here and go with a Monday morning, kind of, something to listen to on your commute into the office or, as you start your work week, just some information. And again, this podcast, of course, is aimed towards folks who are looking to buy a house and make that purchase. Maybe it's your first house, maybe it's your second or third or fourth house. But I wanted to, of course, put together some resources that, hopefully provide you with some good, solid information. I've had some great feedback from folks who have been listening to the podcast. Definitely some really good questions. And I've been trying to answer some of those questions as we go here. One of the questions I received recently, and I see this quite a bit, is, can I get a mortgage if my spouse has horrible or bad credit? The answer is, I guess it depends on what is horrible and bad credit, right? Horrible and bad credit, you may think it's horrible and bad, but it may be something that is something that we can work with on the mortgage end. In some cases, it may be something that we can't work with, right? Maybe it is, something that, at this point in time, would prohibit your spouse from being able to be on a mortgage. So what happens if your spouse, has, credit that may make you ineligible for a mortgage? Well, there's some different ways to look at it, right? Sometimes you can qualify for a mortgage on your own without taking into account the income and or credit history of your spouse. That can be something that can definitely work sometimes for some clients. Sometimes, an option could be to have maybe somebody co-borrow with you. And that co-borrower, maybe goes on the loan with you. And that's what we in the business call oftentimes what's called a non-occupying co-borrower. That means it's a person that's going to be on the mortgage with you, but they don't intend to occupy the house as their residence, if you will. Okay? Most often, typically see a lot of times with parents, who co-sign for, children or family members who may do that. That is an option that can be viable oftentimes for folks too. In that case, generally what has to happen is, you take the income and assets from both borrowers and you kind of pool them all together. And as long as there's enough income, and assets, to qualify at the end of the day, and of course, assuming that the person that's going to co-borrow with you, has credit that would be acceptable and that would pass, then that could be something that could work for you as well too. Now, there can be different restrictions that can apply if you have somebody who's going to be a non-occupying co-borrower with you. There may be some different requirements that are part of getting the loan approval that may factor into the equation there. So those can depend in part on the type of property that you're looking to finance, as far as number of units and stuff like that, as well as the type of loan that you're looking to take out. Whether it's a conventional type of mortgage or an FHA loan. So, I would tell you, just because somebody might have told you no doesn't necessarily mean that you can't, become a homeowner because your spouse has bad credit. As with most things when it comes to mortgages, the individual answers that may apply to you can vary depending on, a number of different circumstances that may be unique to you. So, as always, if you're in the market looking for a mortgage, please, reach out to us. My name is Dan Morales. My NMLS number is 709-729. North Point Bank is an equal housing lender, and we do lend, in many cases, the majority of the 50 states. So, geographically, even if I might not be right next door to you, in many cases, we have the ability to probably assist you with financing your new house, and you get the opportunity to work with somebody who has experience and knows what they're doing. Hey, thank you for listening to the podcast. If you have questions or concerns or feedback or anything that you'd like to maybe have us address in a future episode of the podcast, we would love to do that. You can reach me at dan.morales, Moralez, at northpointe.com. That's northpointe.com. Again, my NMLS number is 709-729, and North Point Bank is an equal housing lender.